Hello, I'm Dr. Michio Kaku, professor of theoretical physics. I do research on the cutting edge of physics, such as black holes or Einstein's theory. But in my book, The Future of the Mind, I explore the brain. You see, MRI scans have given us a revolutionary new way to answer the key question: where do ideas come from? You see, the brain is dynamic, constantly rewiring itself as it creates new ideas. This is what we call neuroplasticity. The brain is a pattern-seeking learning machine. You see, MRI scans show that memories and experiences are not found in just one spot, but are actually spread out over the entire surface of the brain in different combinations of our neurons. So when we daydream, these memories drift and begin to bump and interact with other memories. Eventually, out of these random collision of memories, an idea forms. Next, the brain runs simulations of these ideas into the future. If I do this, or if I do that, then what happens? You see, these simulations determine which ideas will succeed and which ones will fail. So the brain is a time machine, constantly daydreaming about ideas to determine how the future will unfold. And then the brain starts this process all over again. So what are the lessons for us today? Number one, the collision and interaction of memories from your experiences creates ideas. With more diversity in your experience, you can create better and more unique ideas. Number two, you have to constantly run these simulations of these ideas into the future to see which ones will succeed or fail. That's what we call daydreaming. However, generating new ideas is not enough. This is where you come in. You see, ideas are essentially useless until you can bring them into the marketplace and the world. And your ability to do so quickly can change the course of your business and the future. So now, enjoy the briefing.
Welcome and thank you for joining us. Your ideas and your ability to rapidly build, ship, and iterate on your ideas are what drive progress in the digital world. And software development in the cloud has unleashed a new chapter in our ability to turn idea into reality at unprecedented speed with unprecedented scale. This is why customers like yourself over the last few years have been selecting the best services for an array of cloud providers to build innovative apps that have transformed our businesses and the way we engage with employees and with our customers. Applications like the one that connects childcare with parents that need that service, or AI-driven applications that approve loans without a customer ever having to walk into an actual bank. This is the transformational power of multi-cloud. And this is why we believe that multi-cloud is the IT architecture of today and the foreseeable future. But with applications being built across multiple cloud providers, multi-cloud also creates new complexity that slow down our ability to fully exploit the potential of multi-cloud. For your developers, each cloud provider presents its own learning curve with different development tools, different APIs, and different interfaces. Your operators face similar challenges, with every cloud provider increasing the complexity of IT, making it hard to manage your deployment, your security, and your cost. And while cloud migration has been ongoing, refactoring the business-critical applications that run our business has been proven to be costly and slow as we try to reuse the policies that we fine-tuned over the years. So is this what we want from our multi-cloud reality? Of course not. You told us that developers don't even want to think about the underlying infrastructure and how to manage it because they want to stay focused on building applications fast. You want visibility across all your deployments, your span, your security posture, so you can still move fast, but in compliance. And you want to spend less time and money getting your existing application to the cloud so that you can spend time, modernize them using microservices on platforms like Kubernetes. So the good news is today we're going to learn from some very, very smart people that have great insight into the challenge of multi-cloud and how to turn multi-cloud into a strategic advantage. Welcome to our broadcast desk, where I introduce you to several individuals with deep knowledge and perspective on the challenges and opportunity of multi-cloud. First, let me introduce our Chief Technologist, Amanda Blevins, who will answer the question, how can we escape the complexity of multi-cloud and get your ideas into the world faster? Amanda?
Multi-cloud is a familiar evolution of a recurring problem in IT. Originally, we had physical servers, storage arrays, network devices that made managing a data center extremely complex. So we added a layer of abstraction called virtualization. It made it a lot easier to automate. And when we automated, this created the software-defined data center infrastructure as a service. So with on-demand self-service, infrastructure as a service evolved into a cloud. Now with increased cloud consumption, this complexity is back. IT operations has to understand multiple cloud providers and manage them in different ways. And developers must understand the intricacies of each cloud provider they're going to build an application for. So the next layer of abstraction is here. VMware Cross-Cloud Services allows you to build, run, manage, and secure your applications in any cloud in the same way. Each of these services provides standardization across clouds, helping you consume clouds more easily, respond to customer needs, and to release software faster. So now that we understand how standardization can reduce multi-cloud complexity, let's look at a specific example as to how we can solve for this. To do so, let's answer the question, how can we remove roadblocks that prevent developers from releasing software to the cloud faster? And the answer is a DevSecOps practice and toolchain that gives developers the ability to build, deploy, test, and run applications in any cloud provider in the same way. And the solution is the Tanzu application platform. Developers can iterate on their code quickly without having to interface with the underlying cloud infrastructure, which dramatically increases developer velocity. So let's check it out. To see how this works, I invite my colleague Ryan Baker to give us a short demo.
Thanks, Amanda. Let's hop into the Tanzu application platform and see how it can alleviate the developer toil that's typically associated with developing applications across multiple cloud platforms and multiple Kubernetes providers, ultimately leading to getting from source code to production quicker and with fewer roadblocks. Before jumping in, let's take a look at how we clearly define the roles of developers and operators to enable collaboration instead of stepping on each other's toes by defining an inner loop for developers and an outer loop for operators. Let's focus on the inner loop first to illustrate how developers are abstracted from both Kubernetes and the cloud providers that they are working on. To get started on a new application, developers can use the Tanzu Applications Platform's Application Accelerator to choose a starting template for their application from a wide variety of application and language types. While VMware provides several accelerators out of box, your organization can create or customize these as you see fit to incorporate your best practices and architectures. Once a developer has selected their accelerator, they can start developing. From within the developer's IDE, the Tanzu application platform allows the developer to iterate and debug by allowing live deployments of their application to a cloud-based personal development Kubernetes cluster. This cluster can mimic a production cluster, minimizing the differences between the two. Here, we can see that we have launched our application using the Tanzu application platform's live update plugin, which has been built and deployed the application to our developer's personal cluster. Notice that the developer never had to worry about what cloud provider that it was running on, or any of the quote-unquote wall of YAML configuration typically associated with getting an application up and running. This allows your developer to focus on driving business value to your company through your application development instead of through configuration. Once the developer has completed development, we now focus on the outer loop. The Tanzu application platform can deploy to any Kubernetes cluster on any cloud based on your organization's pre-approved path to production, helping remove roadblocks typically associated with application deployment. Here, you can see that we have created our workload using the source code from the developer, and the Tanzu application platform has ran an integration test, scanned the source code for vulnerabilities, built and signed a container for the application, scanned the resulting container for vulnerabilities, generated the deployment configuration, and deployed the application, all with minimal involvement from both developers and operators. Notice again, the process was completely abstracted from both the cloud and Kubernetes provider that the application was deployed to. So there you have it. We've demonstrated how the Tanzu application platform can alleviate developer toil of dealing with multiple cloud environments and increase developer productivity. Back to you, Amanda.
So your developers are moving faster, creating solutions that address customer needs, and bringing new ideas to life that is driving organizations' growth. But all this has to run somewhere, right? It's very likely that your organization has multiple Kubernetes clusters across many clouds, including the edge. So how do we simplify this to give your operators the ability to manage, monitor, and secure Kubernetes clusters anywhere? And we provide that solution with Tanzu for Kubernetes Operations. Tanzu for Kubernetes Operations has three main components. First is Tanzu Mission Control. This is a SaaS solution that provides your administrators with a single interface for governance, lifecycle management, and to apply IT policies to your Kubernetes clusters running in any cloud environment. Tanzu Mission Control supports the VMware distribution Tanzu Kubernetes Grid, in addition to other distros and services like OpenShift, AKS, EKS, and more. Tanzu Observability ingests data from your Kubernetes infrastructure to simplify day two operations and to make it easier to identify issues. And last, Tanzu Service Mesh is a key component for a zero trust architecture and provides end-to-end encryption for your microservices. So I invite my colleague Bosku Savla to give us a quick demo to show us how this works.
Thank you, Amanda. Let's take a look at VMware Tanzu for Kubernetes Operations. Tanzu for Kubernetes Operations is a solution that will help you build, manage, secure Kubernetes clusters across different cloud infrastructure endpoints. On day zero, it will help you build consistent Kubernetes clusters across multiple cloud environments with the right kind of drivers needed to bring up the Kubernetes API, bringing in operational efficiency. Day two, it will provide you with the ability to provision policies and kind of achieve some guardrail against what kind of applications get provisioned using the Kubernetes API. You can apply policies of encryption across all the different microservices that are created within those Kubernetes clusters. In day three and beyond, it gives you the ability to centrally monitor all the metrics that are being generated, not just from your applications deployed within that cluster, but also from the cluster itself. So it gives you a visibility from application all the way down to infrastructure. At the same time, you can upgrade your Kubernetes clusters when the next update is available automatically. Tanzu Mission Control gives you the ability to see all the clusters in a single pane of glass. You can start provisioning Kubernetes clusters using Tanzu Mission Control and Kubernetes Grid to a given cloud provider that you have already added. Once you have the clusters created on a day one basis, you can secure those clusters by providing access, image, network security, and quota policies using Tanzu Mission Control. This can be done to a fleet of clusters using something called as cluster groups or workspaces. Once you have your clusters and development teams deploying applications, you can centrally monitor every cluster all the way to the infrastructure using Tanzu Observability. You can also add mutual TLS by default to all the services that get created on these clusters and applications using Tanzu Service Mesh. Finally, you can create backups and upgrade a cluster when required or when a patch is made available using Tanzu Mission Control. Thank you, and back to you, Amanda.
This is what reducing complexity in multi-cloud era looks like. Your developers deploy applications faster. Your operators have the ability to manage, secure, and observe Kubernetes in any cloud, and your business runs at a sustainable cost. Back to you, Vittorio.
That was great to hear how this new abstraction layer above multi-cloud simplifies both the developer experience and gives operator consistency across all their infrastructure. And for our next segment, I am delighted to welcome Greg and Bryan from Cerner. They're going to talk about their experience using Tanzu. Greg, Bryan, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So let's start with a question about your role. What is your role and how do you end up with these roles at Cerner?
Sure. So my name is Greg Meyer. I'm a Director and Distinguished Engineer here at Cerner. I've been here for about 25 years. I'm currently responsible for solution architecture and development within our Health IT interoperability organization. And I'm also a developer advocate, and I spend a lot of time evangelizing cloud native development and developer experiences.
Very nice.
Hi, my name is Bryan Kelly. I'm a software engineer at Cerner. I've been here for about 14 years. My primary responsibility is running and evangelizing all sorts of interesting tech related to Tanzu now. In a prior life, I was a software engineer that worked on writing software. And I got into this role because I got very disgruntled with how software was delivered. And I really wanted to see a better outcome. I wanted to see our teams being able to deliver their great solutions to production quickly. And I felt that the Tanzu provided that ability, and I took on the mantle of evangelizing and advocating for it.
That's great because nobody wants disgruntled engineers around.
No, disgruntled engineers leave.
Yeah.
So with Cloud Foundry and Tanzu Application Service, you have abstracted the infrastructure tasks from developers. Can you tell us who was involved in the decision? What was the thought process?
The decision tree that we went through was pretty in detail because we were trying to make sure teams follow the 12-factor manifesto as best as possible. But it was easy for teams to think that they don't have to manage VMs anymore. They don't have to manage building containers. They could focus on healthcare applications. That really can be a joyous thing because sometimes we get caught up in why is my build not building? Why is my CI server down? Why is X, Y, or Z happening that makes for a really bad day for developers? We were trying to remove as many of those moving parts and having the team manage them themselves and manage them as a service. So, we were providing pipelines as a service. We were providing continuous delivery as a service, as well as continuous integration as a service. That made teams be able to focus on what truly mattered, which was providing business value to our healthcare clients.
So if I can add a little bit of an anecdote to that, and this goes along with that piece of abstraction, as we went through this journey from that proof of concept that Bryan mentioned about 5 years ago, and then getting to our final production environment, we did jump around to multiple IaaSes. We started on AWS. We moved to vSphere on-prem and then OpenStack, and then we came back for full circle at the end, back to AWS for our first production deployment. So, and each time as we jumped from IaaS to IaaS, due to that abstraction that we got from Cloud Foundry, it was almost trivial to make those jumps and those moves from different IaaSes. And I've heard a lot of stories from teams and other companies where they're taking months or potentially even over a year. If they're all in on a specific IaaS, making a change from something like AWS to Azure. When we executed our pipelines for that final AWS switch, we completed the entire process, and honestly, got only 4 hours. It took us 4 hours to do that. That included everything from data services to those pipelines and configuration services, and having applications up and running across all of our dev and pre-production environments. And really the best part about this is that my development team, they really didn't know any difference between going to OpenStack and AWS. That developer experience in the process was almost exactly the same.
That's great. You're not alone in using multiple clouds, right? 75% of our customers use 2 or more clouds, and having the ability to look at all of them as one with this level of abstraction, in your own words, takes processes that potentially can take months to hours, which is very powerful. And clearly, you look like you have an environment where you use both VM-based applications and service-based application, containers-based application. So tell us what is the role of Kubernetes today and in the next 12 months at Cerner?
It's a great question. There's a lot of workloads at Cerner already on Kubernetes. We were an early adopter. We used it for many business lines, and it made a lot of sense in those business lines. The problem that we ran into is we just don't have consistency. So our long-term strategy over the next 12 months is to unify and have less, undifferentiated heavy lifting across business units on Kubernetes and on Cloud Foundry. And we're looking at things like Tanzu Application Platform to help us unify all of these teams so that they can have consistency, which is big in the business, but also get that same lift and outcomes that we were getting with Cloud Foundry for all those years with Tanzu Application Services. We believe that we're going to be able to have that happen. And we believe that we're going to be able to standardize how application delivery will happen on Kubernetes. And not have so much toil and maybe in some cases shadow IT that happens because developers are just trying to get their job done because they're partially disgruntled sometimes. We want to bring the joy back.
So Greg, tell me more about how you use the Tanzu application platform and Cloud Foundry as an abstraction layer across multiple Kubernetes, across multiple clouds.
So, getting back to the cross-cloud Kubernetes, it's the same thing that we stated before. It's consistency across all of your experiences. You want that developer experience to be the same, no matter if you're in AWS or in Azure, in vSphere. We've gotten this with Cloud Foundry over the last 5 years, and I anticipate we're going to see those same type of benefits as we move over to TAP.
That's fantastic. And so what's the future of TAP? What is coming around the corner?
Go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, as I said earlier, we currently have TAS. It's deployed on AWS, Azure, and vSphere, which is our on-prem. But our plan long term is to complement each one of those offerings with a TAP presence. So yeah, go ahead, Bryan.
I think it's all about complementing. We have Cloud Foundry in many different regions across the globe today. We have data centers and public cloud regions across the globe today. We have Kubernetes as well in those environments. We should be able to converge all of these workloads and successes onto a unified platform that's TAP and get the same level of lift to those teams, and maybe try to tease out why we had to do things differently in one area versus another, and make that something that developers don't have to worry about anymore. Or even operators, we can't forget about them too. They need to be happy about delivering applications to production. And the future there is just making that job easier, not so cumbersome, reducing blast radiuses, reducing the amount of toil when something does necessarily go wrong with a production deployment, being able to have a really quick mean time to recovery. We see that being problematic in some of our Kubernetes workloads today. And we're hoping that utilizing TAP, we should be able to start to uncover what some of those problems are and have permanent fixes in place to keep the joy in programming.
Yeah, so thank you very much for your time today. I love your story because VMware being a software development company, we understand the value of keeping developer productive. And you clearly have figured out how to do that in a multi-cloud environment and in a hybrid environment, spanning on-prem and multiple clouds, and using VMs and containers. So fantastic story. Thank you for being a great customer, and thank you for sharing your stories with our customers.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. I really loved hearing how our customers are taking their organization to the next level with modern application development. And now, for our final segment, I'm thrilled to introduce our CTO, Kit Colbert, and guest Snowflake for a discussion on the new opportunities created by this abstraction above multi-cloud.
Hello. I'm here with Peter MacDonald, who is the head of strategic partnerships and business development at Snowflake. Peter, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Kit.
So Peter, we've been talking a lot about multi-cloud and a lot about cross-cloud and what that sort of architecture looks like. And I definitely want to dive into that and talk about both what we're doing here at VMware about that, but obviously what you guys at Snowflake are doing. But to start that, I really want to start off from a customer standpoint. What are you hearing from your customers around multi-cloud? How do they get there, and what are they seeing with the challenges?
Yeah, thanks, Kit. We see customers adopting multi-cloud for a variety of different reasons. In some cases, it's actually their explicit strategy to have multiple different cloud providers. In other cases, they may adopt different clouds for different workloads. Maybe one cloud they think has a better capability for streaming analytics, another cloud might have better capabilities for traditional, say, analysis of financial data. So the different workloads can drive adoption of different clouds. We also see different departments or divisions within an enterprise or organization adopting different clouds for their own preferences. And sometimes companies acquire other companies, and that other company, the acquired company, has a different cloud platform as well. On top of that, you'll sometimes find latency issues, data sovereignty issues driving the adoption of different clouds too. So there are a variety of reasons that lead to this outcome, but we are seeing more and more companies, both enterprises and increasingly mid-sized companies, adopting a multi-cloud strategy.
Yeah, that's interesting because we see the same pattern with our customers as well. And it's funny because some of them definitely do have this very intent mindset, like I'm going to go multi-cloud, I'm going to do it very intentionally. They've got a whole strategy there. But to your point, more customers, I would say, just sort of end up there, right? They don't necessarily intend to do it, but through an acquisition or one of the lines of business going out and starting to use those things. And now, hey, guess what? Surprise, they're multi-cloud. So then, once they're in that position, though, what do you see as the challenges to really managing, operating, running in a multi-cloud environment?
In our space, which is data analytics and machine learning, data science, the biggest issue is data silos. And even within on one cloud or within one enterprise, that has been one of the challenges that we've been helping companies address for many years now. But once you move data to different clouds, those clouds in effect can become data silos in and of themselves. And companies and organizations need to gather insights from all the data they can have available to them. And if all of a sudden certain data is not available to them elsewhere in the organization, that is a real hindrance. So that the insights that are precluded from data silos is a big issue. And on top of that, you come into data governance issues. What you want to be able to do is access all the data wherever it is in the organization or elsewhere, but making sure you have appropriate data governance in place. And that can be another challenge as well once you move into this multi-cloud world.
Yeah, that's interesting. We see the same sort of siloing happening. I mean, it's funny. You guys are obviously looking at it very much from a data-centric perspective. We're looking at it more from a compute-centric and maybe management perspective, but it's very similar. And, we see a lot of customers challenging or having challenges around, duplication and how do you drive consistency across there? How do you do things like security, right? And to your point, governance is a really big focus there. So tell me then, how are you at Snowflake thinking about solving these challenges, and not just thinking about, but actually solving these challenges for customers?
Yeah, a big part of the solution for multi-cloud comes back into cross-cloud. And cross-cloud is very near and dear to our hearts here at Snowflake, and frankly, one of our core differentiators. Cross-cloud for us means that data moves easily between multiple public clouds without any additional work from the customer. There's no worrying about where your data is and where the applications live and where your business and technical people are located. It's that seamless access and experience for the customers and for the users, irrespective of the major public clouds and what data is on what cloud. When you get into individual kind of benefits and features, one of the things that's core to us in cross-cloud is data sharing. And modern data sharing enables live access between data and consumers. The data doesn't need to move. It's always up to date. It's live, and it's always available. And it's available across business units, across the business ecosystem. So being able to access across organizational boundaries, including with your customers, your suppliers, and also being able to get live access to data in a governed way from data providers in a data marketplace. That's one core feature for cross-cloud for us. Another core capability is true failover and failback. The public clouds are very reliable, but sometimes they do go down. And when that happens, you want to be able to use another secondary cloud, not just for data backup, but for true failover for your applications and then fail back at the right time. So that's very important too. And then we come back to data governance, like we talked about before. When you're looking at being able to access this data, when you do switch from one cloud to another or get access to data in another cloud, that data governance needs to span multiple clouds, and that's very important. With Snowflake, we enable that with sometimes we call it our brain, but it's our Snow House capability, which is part of our architecture that sits on top of not only multiple different regions within a cloud, but goes cross-cloud as well and provides these capabilities.
Awesome. Yeah, so it's interesting because, rallying around that data layer, that sort of cross-cloud data architecture, and I think that complements really well how we've been thinking about it. Through what we've been talking about is this notion of cross-cloud at a few different layers. We see it at an infrastructure layer, so the DevSecOps, sort of how you develop and build applications. We think about it from an app architecture perspective, but that notion of the data cross-cloud layer, super complementary and super critical to all modern enterprise, right? But then having some of the commonalities around security, governance, et cetera. Yeah. So now we have the solution there, that sort of architecture. So what then is the value for customers of adopting an approach like this?
Yeah, that's great. And Kit, I just echo your point. The cross-cloud capabilities have to truly be enabled at the platform level, and that whether it's Snowflake or further up the stack or VMware, it's all right there. For us, the customer benefits come back into, in part, breaking down those data silos like we talked before. So it's unlocking, untold insights and the new business opportunities that come from those insights that weren't available or even imaginable just a few years ago. Right now, data silos can also be created by individual SaaS applications that may be in different clouds or for other reasons. And now we're able to eliminate those data silos and bring together a single source of data with this modern data sharing that goes cross-cloud. The benefits on the technical side, getting away from some of the business benefits, is the consistent data services being available across the organization irrespective of the cloud. And we're finding that our CIOs and chief data officers value that as well too. There is this capability to go cross-cloud, but have that consistent data services layer provided by our platform that enables them to do the things that their customers are asking for them.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And we see such similar benefits to customers for VMware cross-cloud services as well. It's this notion of really how do you drive that business priority with the sort of technology optionality, right? That you may need an application and its data, of course, in a certain public cloud or in a different one, or on-prem, or at the edge, or across all of these things. And I think historically, technology has really gotten in the way of enabling the technology department to deliver that functionality to the business. And so I see, one of the big benefits here is actually enabling that alignment and that acceleration.
I completely agree.
Well, Peter, thanks so much for joining me in the conversation. It's really amazing to see the type of alignment in our thinking around cross-cloud and how it's driving a big change in the industry. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Kit, and thank you for inviting Snowflake to participate.
We are truly thrilled to be the platform where you can build, launch, and grow your ideas. The apps that you've built already have helped the world stay healthy, safe, and productive over one of the most challenging periods of our lives. And what you build next sets the course for the future. So we want you to have the freedom to choose where and how those ideas become realities. To do so, your teams can test our platform for free using Tanzu Community Edition so that they can get a hands-on experience with one of our cross-cloud services. Thank you for spending the time with us, and I will see you in the cloud. in the multi-cloud.